a little bit.
But we will continue our coverage of the situation that happened in Minneapolis. Let's welcome in former acting Secretary of Homeland Security and chair of the Center for Homeland Security at the America First Policy Institute, Chad Wolf. Good morning to you, Chad. So I guess we got to start with your first reactions of what we saw happen over the weekend in Minneapolis.
Well, obviously, another tragic incident. Anytime there's a loss of life, I think it is tragic. There's an investigation obviously playing out, as there are in other instances as well, and we should let that process play out. You know, you can look at one image or one video from a couple of different angles and start to draw conclusions, but you don't know until you start interviewing eyewitnesses and start understanding the full picture of everything that's going on. So I know that investigation's playing out, and but the most important thing here is that ICE has a mission to do there in Minneapolis and across the country. And so it's really important that local law enforcement support them in doing that mission, which unfortunately is not the case in Minneapolis, which is why you see the chaos that is unfolding there today.
Yeah, you see local leaders calling for ICE to leave Minneapolis. We know that is not going to happen. Where does this end? Because it seems like these protests are only growing.
Yeah, that's true. You know, the mayor and the governor are just shouting into the wind when they say they want ICE to leave. ICE is not going anywhere. They have a mission to do. If I was at the department and the White House, I would give the governor and the mayor some very specific conditions to meet. And if those conditions are met and the violence starts to wane or drop, then I would say I can remove some of those ICE officers, because the vast majority of those officers are actually not doing enforcement operations. They're there for crowd control and riot control and to keep ICE officers safe. If local police takes up that mission, as they should, as they do in every other jurisdiction across the country, well, then you can start to remove some officers as that violence starts to decrease. So I would put it back on the mayor and the governor to say, here are very specific things you can do. And if those are met, then we can start to resolve this situation.
Yeah, Chad, the governor and mayor are both talking about poorly trained federal officials, these ICE agents and CPB agents who are there being poorly trained. Can you give me an idea about the kind of training that these agents go through before they go on the street?
Yeah, absolutely. The ICE officers and agents go to the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center in Glencoe, Georgia, just like many other local and state law enforcement officers. It's the premier training academy, and so they'll do that. Then as they're deployed, if they are part of the SRT team, which is their special response team, they get additional training. They get recurrent training. And ICE operates mainly in urban environments, so they are trained to do exactly what they're doing today. If you transition to Border Patrol has their own academy in Artesia, New Mexico, where they get trained for very specific missions. They also have special teams that get trained on riot control and crowd control. So these officers are fully trained to do the mission that is unfolding there in Minneapolis. And so when I hear the governor says they're not law enforcement and that they're untrained, he has no idea what he's talking about. He's making up facts, and unfortunately, it's incentivizing residents there to impede those law enforcement operations.
And we know that AG Pam Bondi wrote a letter to Democrat Governor Tim Walz over the weekend, providing a potential off-ramp for federal officials, saying if he repeals sanctuary policies and shares Medicaid, food assistance, voter data, that they could, quote, bring an end to this chaos in Minnesota. Is this a realistic play here?
Well, I doubt the governor is going to do all that. He should, certainly, and I agree with AG Bondi. But I think it's important that, you know, the ability to bring this to a close, or at least to reduce the amount of violence and chaos that we see there, is entirely with the governor and the mayor. All they have to do is let local law enforcement cooperate with ICE, open up their jails, do a variety of different things. And I think you will start to see over time the chaos and the violence that we see there reduce. But they don't. All they do is they go to the microphone and they start yelling about how ICE needs to leave their city. That's just not going to happen. Because if it does happen, then you'll see this replicated in places like Portland and Chicago and New York and elsewhere, that they think if they scream loud enough that ICE will leave, and that's obviously not beneficial for anyone.